And the reason why we're making jokes about it being casual hockey fan season is because on the men's side of the bracket, it's a wrap for the Triangle teams. One ACC squad remaining in the Miami Hurricanes. They keep the streak going for ACC teams that have made the Sweet 16. That started in 1980. So shout out to the Hurricanes, who are doing more for basketball in the ACC than they've ever done in football. Slow clap for the Canes, baby.
2 years in a row.
That's why they were brought to the conference. That's why John Swofford brought him here. He saw the long-term play here. It was, football was whatever. Basketball. They're going to save basketball. Duke's out. We talked about State in the previous segment. If you missed any of that conversation, check it out on YouTube. But Duke's also out of the NCAA tournament after they got bullied by Tennessee. Having a couple days to kind of process what I watched on Saturday, Joe, where the Volunteers, it was more than it was just physical, okay? The officiating allowed them to play. I'm okay with that. I've been screaming all year, let them play. And that's what we've seen mostly in the NCAA tournament. They've let them play outside, as you pointed out, a few minutes in that NC State-Creighton game. But for the most part, they were letting them play. And that gave in to what Rick Barnes has always done, going all the way back to his Clemson days, okay?
Yeah.
They want to play physical, almost football-like basketball. Shout out to all the people making hockey jokes that the Volunteers did a really good job on their forecheck when it came to playing Duke on Saturday. But I don't think that it was Duke getting out-toughed, because Duke's been in this position plenty in the ACC where I don't know what it is. Maybe they got a rep. Maybe they saw a couple games early on. They thought, hey, you know what? You can push this Duke team around. But this Duke team has responded to rock fights. Kyle Filipowski has been bloodied multiple times this season, or elbows to the face, and he has responded. Ultimately, I think what caught up to Duke was attrition in a physical game.
Yeah, I mean, not having Mark Mitchell, their power forward, at the start of the game that's important.
And three-pointers. Turnovers have been a problem for Duke all season long. They've been able to overcome that. But they've never been a great three-point shooting team. They've gotten three production when needed, but it's never been one of their strong suits. And when Tennessee is not only bullying you, and you're dealing with attrition, Mark Mitchell right out of the gate. We mentioned Kyle Filipowski, who had to miss significant minutes while they tended to his busted lower eye and to stop the bleeding. And then you got Jeremy Roach, who turns an ankle at one point in that game, and he's saddled with foul trouble. So that attrition got to him, and then when Tennessee's banging threes on you, and they haven't done that all year, they're like a 30% three-point shooting team, and they're 9 of 14, I think, in this game?
9 of 21.
Dude, you just tip your cap and say, look, man, it was Tennessee's day. They got you physically, and they were hitting threes. You couldn't match the three-point production, and that's why you got sent home. I think that pretty much nails what happened in that Tennessee game.
Older team, too.
Yes.
Another one of those older teams who play ugly ball. That's the big takeaway I take from this weekend. I didn't think the pretty teams would last, and Arizona didn't. Kansas this year is another one of those super athletic teams. TCU last night, another one of those teams I was impressed with in the Big 12. They can't get by Gonzaga. Indiana's kind of old school in terms of they got a post. They move it around. They get up and down the floor. Miami took care of them. I thought Miami was just the better, tougher team in that game. But look at Miami. They're one of the older teams in the ACC. They're one of the teams who went into the portal and got some of these 5th and 6th year players. NC State, Pitt. Those three teams, their success was contingent upon older, stronger players. And that's going to be the big challenge for Jon Scheyer. How do you adjust in the new world of college basketball where, of the top 20 players in the country, maybe 3 or 4 of them go play G League or play Overtime Elite. They don't come and play college basketball. Then there are the international players who don't come and play. This whole thing is evolving, and it just so happens to be evolving at a time where you're losing your name brand coaches. Jay Wright working these games for CBS. I'm like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be his time ruling college basketball, but he had no interest in it.
Yeah.
Mike Bray, shout out to our guy Mike Bray today, taking a job down in South Florida with our guy Mike Kelly. I mean, he's talking about a combo. That's a Giglio special. We're going to have some USF merch up here and right quick. But you see this turning over in the ACC in particular. Then I'm going to get myself in trouble here, but I look at the SEC. You know who I love? And you know who I actually think? If you gave me, remember I said, let's have a vote. Let's have the 300-plus coaches vote who the best coach in college basketball is.
Yeah.
And I bet you a bunch of guys get a vote. 20 guys, 25 guys, right?
Sure.
I honestly think I might vote for Eric Musselman.
Oh, okay.
Crazy X&O guy. And he's a little bit of a wackadoo. You saw him take his shirt off and run around. There's a little bit of that Bray personality that kind of seeps out. You know, his dad was an NBA coach, knows how to go into the portal and get guys. If you look at this mock draft, they got 2 freshmen who could, turn around and be first-round picks in the NBA draft. They beat Kansas in a tough game, and they're in that tough West, Sweet 16 with UCLA and Gonzaga and UConn. I mean, that's good basketball that you're seeing. But that shows you, would you think if we asked somebody in the triangle, hey, who's the best coach in college basketball, do you think anyone would think of Eric Musselman?
No, they would not think that.
Probably not.
No, they would not think
Probably
that.
not, but that just shows you the kind of the variety that's out there right now. And you look at it and you go, well, who's supposed to be running this sport now that Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Jay Wright, now that they're gone?
It's funny. We talked about the whole Sweet 16 run for the ACC. Go look at the teams that were making the Sweet 16. It's Dean Smith, Carolina teams, Roy Williams, Carolina teams, and Mike Krzyzewski, Duke teams, filling up the majority of that Sweet 16 run. So a lot of the ACC's pride kind of comes from 2 teams in the grand scheme of things. Shout out to Maryland that was in there as well.
I was say, my man Gary Williams.
They're
called the Gary Williams death rules for a reason.
Here's Jon Scheyer, Duke head coach, proud of his team's effort this season in the NCAA tournament.
For these guys, they've given us everything you could ask for. They've fought through perseverance. They've fought through adversity. They've stuck together when things weren't looking as good, and came into this game one of the hottest teams in the country, and we felt like we were supposed to win this game, as did they. And really felt like a Sweet 16, Elite 8 game, type of game. It was they're really good, and credit them. They shoot almost 50 from 3, and Kamala has one of his best games, maybe his best game ever, and you got to tip your hat to him.
So that's Jon Scheyer, Duke head basketball coach, after they got knocked out by Tennessee. Jon Scheyer, and I think this was in an article in The Athletic. I think Brendan Marks had done this conversation with Scheyer, or it was Dana O'Neill. Regardless, it was in The Athletic. And Scheyer hinted that he doesn't know how teams are going to be constructed at Duke going forward. We knew what the last act of Mike Krzyzewski was, right? 2009, 2010, USA basketball, Roy Williams is supposedly going to run the table now. They win the championship in 2009. They get Harrison Barnes. Mike Krzyzewski's with the USA basketball. People are freaking out. There's the John Wall recruitment, which was more of a signaling to the college basketball world that they were in the one-and-done game. And that culminates in the 2015 national championship. Mind you, there was one in 2010, but 2015 was part of that last act for Mike Krzyzewski.
The last adjustment.
Yes. So, Shire, if we follow what this whole transition of power, if you will, at Duke is about, it's about finding different ways to win at Duke, not just the one way to win at Duke. I think there is no one way to win at Duke. That was the entire point of Mike Krzyzewski in Durham, whereas at Carolina, there are these preconceived notions as to what a Carolina basketball program is supposed to look like. That may hold Carolina back.
I was going to say, now you can't blame them.
Of course not. It's been super successful for them.
For Dean Smith having the success that he did, and for Roy Williams coming as close to being Dean Smith on the basketball court as you possibly can be.
I'm not knocking it.
You can't blame any Carolina followers or fans to say, this has been super successful. Why aren't we doing this anymore?
But I think we understand why Roy Williams finally retired.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And I think,
although Kalkbrenner would be like his favorite player of all time.
I know. So Shire alluded to that it might not be as many freshmen going forward, that you're going to see more portal guys or older guys. Because if you wanted to do like the big flashing lights, big takeaway from first weekend of the NCAA tournament, I actually think it's a culmination of the last couple of years. I don't think it's just because of the COVID extra year throwing everything into flux. I think what the COVID extra year did is, like all things COVID related, just kind of finally gave the push necessary for the next iteration of things, including how we consume media, accelerating the death of certain platforms and other things. And I think in college basketball, it has accelerated the idea that, hey, there are college basketball players that can stick around and make money and might not ever step foot in the NBA. Going forward, what would you rather have in college basketball now? You want a bunch of Drew Timmies? Is that what you want?
Probably.
What do you honestly? What do you want going forward?
Locally, you can look at it, Armando Bacot and DJ Burns, right? Their skill set probably doesn't translate to the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
But what's wrong with the money that Armando Bacot made last year?
Nothing.
What's wrong with the money that DJ Burns is in line to make? I mentioned Kalkbrenner at Creighton. He can't play in the NBA, but you know what? There's a spot for him in college basketball. It's almost like you want the good college basketball players now. And that sounds stupid, but what I'm saying is it used to be you wanted the pros.
Yes.
I want the NBA guys.
But heck, they're not going to the college.
Heck, even Tony Bennett won his title with NBA guys, right? I think this tournament used to be NBA guys win it. I think now you're going to look at it, and Brandon Miller can throw this all in a blender, right? For Alabama, who's the number one prospect in college basketball right now. And maybe we turn around on the day after the Final Four and the championship, and there's Alabama on the top of the box, and we go, well, you got to have Brandon Miller. You got to have the number one NBA prospect. But I think once we get to the Final Four, I think you're going to look around and go, I think I just want guys who are older and want to be here and buy into what we're doing and have a hunger to perform in this tournament. I think that, Joe, is the second biggest takeaway. Looking at an FDU, like they wanted to be there. They wanted to perform on this stage. And Jarkel Joyner, even though he didn't play well for NC State, he wanted to be on this stage. Jeremy Roach at Duke, gutting through the ankle injury. He wanted to be on this stage. And, I don't know if you could have said that 4 or 5 years ago. It was, the Duke Zion show was, oh my gosh, these guys are going to be so good in the NBA. Oh my, I can't wait till they get there. Well, what's wrong with college basketball? And I think you're seeing a whole new crop. Even the governor said this. Governor Roy Cooper, when we went to see him last week, he said, I think NIL, one of the positive changes you're going to see from NIL is players are going to stay in college basketball that otherwise probably would have gone and tried to make more money even when they weren't going to play in the NBA.